Marvel's Infinity War is the biggest superhero movie ever, and it's finally coming out in a couple of days. There have been 10 years and 18 movies building up to this epic finale, so we have a lot to go through. I'll start by talking about the Infinity Stones, which are the major players in Infinity War, and then I'll talk about all the movies and the chronological order of their events, so forget the release dates, and I'll point out where all the Infinity Stones show up in the movies, and how it all leads up to Infinity War. Alright, so let's start with the Infinity Stones. There are 6 Infinity Stones: the Space Stone, the Mind Stone, the Reality Stone, the Power Stone, the Time Stone, and the Soul Stone. As the Collector explains in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1,
before creation itself, there were 6 singularities. Then the universe exploded into existence, and the remnants of these systems were forged into concentrated ingots.
Basically, these stones are the physical manifestations of the aspects that create the universe. They're like the code to the universe, and whoever is capable of wielding their powers can meddle with the workings of the universe. And this is important because not everyone is able to wield these powerful stones. We saw Red Skull get blown into space when he grabbed the Space Stone, and when the Collector's assistant, Karina, grabs the Power Stone, it causes the whole museum to explode. So in fact, in ancient times, only celestial beings of immense powers, were able to hold these stones, but that wasn't always the case, because we saw Loki and Doctor Strange both use it once the stones are housed in certain items, like the Time Stone in the Eye of Agamotto, and the Mind Stone in Loki's scepter, or the Power Stone in Ronin's big hammer axe thingy. Okay, so enough about the stones for now, let's get into the movies. Alright, so as I said, we're going to ignore the release dates of the movies and talk about them in chronological order of the events. So, first up is Captain America, the First Avenger. It starts out in 1942 with Johann Schmidt, the leader of Hydra, which is Germany's weapons development unit funded by Hitler. He finds the Tesseract containing the Space Stone, and he, along with Dr. Armin Zola, harness its energy to power his new weapons. Meanwhile, in the US, Steve Rogers is constantly getting rejected by the military during World War II. He persists in enrolling in the military multiple times until he's noticed by Dr. Abraham Erskine. He tells Steve about the super soldier program, which could make him a super soldier. Steve Rogers accepts the risks and is injected with a special serum and Vita rays and emerges as Captain America. And as Captain America, he goes on to destroy the rest of Hydra's bases, but during one of these missions involving the capture of Dr. Armin Zola, his friend Bucky Barnes falls off a train and is presumed dead. Finally, Steve and his team manage to catch up to Red Skull, who is Johann Schmidt. Steve gets aboard Schmidt's aircraft as he tries to use the Tesseract to destroy the major cities around the globe. During the fight, the Tesseract's container is broken, and Red Skull grabs the Tesseract itself with his own bare hands and gets blown into space, because he is a wimp. So the Tesseract melts through the aircraft and falls back to Earth, and is later retrieved by Howard Stark. Rogers crash lands the ship because there's no way to save the world except the Arctic, and is found 70 years later. Nick Fury approaches him on the Avengers initiative.
Trying to get me back in the world?
Trying to save it.
So next up is Iron Man. Iron Man isn't really related to the Infinity War movies. It just introduces the Iron Man character, so we're not really gonna go in depth over that. So Tony Stark is the son of Howard Stark, the guy that helped Captain America make his shield and the super soldier program thing. And he has inherited Stark Industries, which is a weapons manufacturer company. On his way back from his weapons presentation in Afghanistan, he gets kidnapped by a terrorist group. He makes an iron suit to escape and then gets home and then upgrades it to fight the terrorists and the bad guys, and then he announces that Stark Industries will no longer manufacture weapons, which pisses off his father's partner Obadiah Stane. But when Stane finds out about the suit, he wants a piece of the pie and tries to get his hands on the suit for mass production. He eventually manages to get the arc reactor from Tony's chest to power his own suit, and then Tony uses his old reactor to defeat the new suit of Obadiah Stane, and yeah, he declares he's Iron Man. I am Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
Alright, now the next 3 movies, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, and Thor, all happen at the same time, and none of them really have anything to do with Infinity War, so I'll just go through the big events that happen through these 3 movies. Right, so in 2005, Dr. Bruce Banner is bombarded with gamma rays, and Betty's formula, Betty's his girlfriend, transforms him into the Hulk, and he runs off. Yes, he runs off. Now fast forward to 2011, Tony is attacked by Ivan Vanko during a race at Circuit de Monaco, but he manages to defeat Ivan. Meanwhile, on Asgard, Thor's coronation is interrupted by frost giants breaking into Odin's treasure room, and then Thor, against Odin's orders, brings the battle to Jotunheim before Odin puts a stop to it. Odin strips Thor of his powers and banishes him to Earth. A little while later, Justin Hammer hires Ivan to create him the Hammer drones, but Ivan uses them to attack Iron Man instead. The Hulk is tracked down at Culver University and is attacked by an enhanced Emil Blonsky. Meanwhile, Thor is attacked by the Destroyer, which is sent by his brother Loki, but of course Thor manages to defeat it and returns to Asgard, and he's now worthy of his hammer, Mjolnir. Blonsky mutates into the Abomination when he is injected with products derived from Banner's blood, but Hulk defeats him anyway because he's the Hulk. Now, in the post-credit scenes of the Hulk, Tony Stark approaches General Ross to put a team together, and in a post-credit scene in Thor, after Nick Fury receives the necessary funds to study the Tesseract, he approaches Professor Selvig for an advisory role at S.H.I.E.L.D. With this, everything is set up for The Avengers, which is a very important film because it introduces Thanos for the first time, and we'll actually see him for like a couple of seconds in a post-credit scene, and the Mind Stone. We'll also finally see how the powers of these stones can be utilized. So remember how Loki drifted into space when, well, he eventually lands on the asteroid strewn area known as the Sanctuary, which is presided over by Thanos. There he makes a deal with Thanos and the Other to bring him the Tesseract, and Thanos will give him Earth to rule. Thanos gives Loki the scepter with the Mind Stone and a Chitauri army to help him retrieve the Tesseract and take over Earth. Loki uses the energy of the Tesseract to teleport to S.H.I.E.L.D's facility, where he steals the Tesseract and uses the Mind Stone to control the minds of Selvig and Hawkeye. Shortly after, Loki apparently allows himself to be captured by Captain America and Iron Man. Thor arrives and eventually agrees that Loki should be taken into S.H.I.E.L.D's custody. But Loki manages to escape by turning the Avengers against each other and making the Hulk go on a rampage. The battle proceeds to New York, where Loki opens a wormhole to allow the invading Chitauri army to swarm the city. The Avengers unite, defeat Loki, and Iron Man manages to prevent a nuclear missile from wiping out New York City, and redirects it to the wormhole instead. The invasion is ended and the Tesseract is reclaimed. Thor takes the Tesseract to Asgard for safekeeping, but the scepter containing the Mind Stone somehow ends up in the hands of Hydra, as we'll see in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Iron Man 3's events occur next, and Tony is traumatized from the events in New York City and deals with this by building the Iron Legion and his Mark 42. After discovering Killian's plans and his work on Extremis, Stark and his Iron Legion save an Extremis-infected Pepper Potts, who didn't need much saving, while Rhodes rescues the kidnapped president. Next up is Thor: The Dark World, where we're introduced to the Aether, the Reality Stone, but here it's liquidy. The Dark World starts off with some ancient history. Remember how before the universe came into existence there were 6 singularities? Yeah, well, there were also Dark Elves. Then after the universe came into existence, Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, awaited for the Convergence, which is the alignment of the 9 realms and occurs once every 5,000 years, in order to use the Aether to destroy the 9 realms and revert the universe to before the existence of the universe, if that makes any sense. But it doesn't matter because he's stopped by Odin's father Bor and his Asgardian army. Bor seals the Aether away, never to be found until 5,000 years later, when the next convergence occurs and Jane Foster stumbles upon it and activates it. She becomes infected by the Aether and Malekith is awakened. Thor's mother Frigga is killed by Malekith and Algrim while trying to protect Jane. Thor, again against his father's wishes, frees Loki and attempts to face Malekith alone and destroy the Aether. But he fails. Thor takes the battle to Greenwich, where he manages to defeat Malekith and the Dark Elves. Sif and Volstagg deliver the Aether to the Collector, since Asgard already has the Space Stone, and
it is not wise to keep 2 Infinity Stones so close together.
That's very wise.
Right, in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, we're introduced to Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, and it's revealed that Hydra has been within S.H.I.E.L.D. the entire time, and Project Insight is all a part of their plan. We first see the Winter Soldier when he's assigned to assassinate Nick Fury, who manages to escape and fakes his own death. During a fight with the Winter Soldier, Captain America realizes that he's Bucky Barnes, but he's been brainwashed by Hydra. When Secretary Alexander Pierce finally begins Project Insight after the approval of the World Security Council, Natasha, Falcon, and Captain America are there to stop him. A couple of months later, and we're taken to the galaxies in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Here, of course, we're shown the orb, which contains the Power Stone. So basically, Thanos wants the orb, so he hires Ronan to get him the orb, and in exchange, he'll destroy Xandar for him. Star-Lord and Yondu are also after the orb to sell it to the Brooker. So first, Ronan sends Korath to get the orb, but Star-Lord beats him to it and takes the orb to himself, and leaving Yondu behind as well. So Yondu puts a bounty on his head. When Korath comes back empty-handed, Ronan sends Gamora. Rocket and Groot are bounty hunters, and they find Star-Lord with the bounty on his head. Around the same time, Gamora locates Star-Lord, and all of them get in a big-ass fight, and they end up getting arrested by the Nova Corps. They get sent to Klein Prison, where they meet Drax. Then Gamora confronts Star-Lord and tells him that she doesn't plan on giving the orb to Ronan or Thanos, but will instead sell it to the Collector, who, she doesn't know, is actually working for Thanos. They manage to escape prison and reach nowhere, where they meet the Collector to sell him the orb. But when they find out the destructive power of the orb, they decide to not let it fall in the wrong hands, and they run off with it. Ronan, however, finds them, and along with Nebula, they take back the orb. But when Ronan realizes the powers of the orb, he realizes that he doesn't need Thanos anymore, and decides to destroy Xandar himself. But the Guardians of the Galaxy, with the help of Yondu and Nova Corps, manage to defeat Ronan. The Power Stone is then given to the Nova Corps for safekeeping. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 takes place just a couple of weeks later, but it just follows Star-Lord's story mainly, and we meet his father Ego, a godlike celestial, and his servant Mantis. We also meet Aisha, leader of the sovereign race. Ego teaches his son Peter to use his celestial power to manipulate matter, but Quill realizes that Ego is just using him to activate the seeds he's planted on multiple planets. When Quill finds out that Ego killed his mother, he becomes angry, and with the help of Gamora, Rocket, and the rest of the Guardians, they manage to destroy Ego's brain at the center of the planet and defeat him. Back on Earth, the Avengers assemble to raid Hydra's main research facility in Sokovia and take Wolfgang von Strucker into custody and retrieve Loki's scepter. They encounter the twins Pietro and Wanda Maximoff, but the twins manage to escape. When the Avengers get back to the Avengers Tower, Tony discovers an AI within the scepter and asks Bruce Banner for his help in creating global peacekeeping program, Ultron. However, Ultron doesn't turn out the way they expected him to, and instead is bent on annihilation of humanity.
Peace in our time.
In his waking, Ultron destroys Jarvis and attacks the Avengers in their headquarters. Ultron recruits the twins and commissions them to obtain Wakandan vibranium from an arms dealer, Ulysses Claw. There he is intercepted by the Avengers, but Wanda invades their minds with horrific visions and makes the Hulk go nuts.
I'm calling it Veronica.
The Avengers retreat and regroup at a safe house, Hawkeye's private home basically, where they reunite with Nick Fury and come up with a plan to defeat Ultron. Meanwhile, Ultron forces Dr. Helen Cho to use the Mind Stone, synthetic tissue, and vibranium to create him a new body. But as he is uploading his mind to the new body, Wanda is able to read his mind and discovers his plan to destroy Earth. So the Maximoff twins turn on Ultron, and with the help of Captain America, Hawkeye, and Romanoff, they retrieve the synthetic body. At headquarters, Stark activates Jarvis and brings him online in Vision's body. The Avengers, along with the Maximoff twins, unite to fight Ultron in Sokovia, where he used the remaining vibranium to create a weapon that will lift the city skyward and then launch it back meteor-like into Earth and blow the whole place up. During the battle, Pietro dies protecting Hawkeye, who was protecting a little kid. The Avengers barely manage to evacuate everyone on Sokovia to the helicarrier. Then they blow up the city so it crashes down into little tiny rock drops. In the aftermath, the Hulk departs in a Queen jet because he feels that he's too great of a danger. Thor returns to Asgard, Barton retires, Wanda, Vision, Rhodes, and Sam Wilson join the Avengers. In a mid-credit scene, Thanos vows to retrieve the Infinity Stone for himself since all his pawns prove to be so f***ing useless.
I'll do it myself.
Alright, next up is Ant-Man. Here we're shown the origins of technology that allow Ant-Man to shrink and Scott Lang, the Ant-Man. Hank Pym is the inventor and owner of Ant-Man's suit and is afraid that this technology may fall into the wrong hands and is aware of the dangers it imposes. So when he finds Darren Cross is developing a yellow suit which achieves the same results as Ant-Man, he freaks out. So Pym recruits Scott Lang to steal the yellow suit, however he fails to retrieve it. But Lang chases after Cross to a final fight at Lang's old house where he manages to sabotage Cross' suit, shrink uncontrollably, killing Cross. And in a post-credit scene, Sam Wilson tells Rogers about Ant-Man.
I know a guy.
Afterwards, we have the events of Captain America Civil War. Approximately a year after the events of Age of Ultron, the UN establishes the Sokovia Accords, which involves creating a panel to oversee and regulate the actions of the Avengers. The Avengers become divided, with Captain America against signing the Accords because he doesn't trust the judgment of the government to do the right thing, and Iron Man is in favor of any form of regulation over the Avengers. This divides the Avengers into two teams and results in a battle between Iron Man's team and Captain America's team, which results in the apprehension of all but Captain America and Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, who escape to find Helmut Zemo, who threatens to have power over 5 other Winter Soldiers, but when they arrive and Iron Man catches up to them, Zemo instead shows them footage of Bucky killing Tony Stark's parent. Iron Man fights Bucky and Captain America to a stalemate, then Rogers leaves without his shield, and Barnes without his arm. Barnes is granted asylum in Wakanda, and Rogers frees his teammates.
I'll be there.
Then we're taken to Wakanda, where after the death of his father T'Chaka in Civil War, T'Challa is crowned king of Wakanda. His first act as king is to capture the elusive Ulysses Klaue, who has been smuggling vibranium from Wakanda. He's the guy that Ultron got all his vibranium from in Avengers Age of Ultron, but he fails to capture him. T'Challa finds out that his father T'Chaka killed his own brother, Prince Njogu, who helped Klaue smuggle vibranium and left his son orphaned. His son, now known as Eric Killmonger, is all grown up and is coming for the throne. He challenges T'Challa and defeats him, but T'Challa recovers and comes back and retakes the throne. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man goes up against Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. With the help of Tony and his best friend Ned, he manages to take him down. Back on Earth, Dr. Stephen Strange is a renowned, best of the best, arrogant prick surgeon. But after he gets in a car accident, he's damaged his hands pretty bad and can no longer operate. After trying all medical and scientific options, he decides to visit Kamar Taj and the Ancient One. He studies under the Ancient One and Mordu, and from the ancient books of the library guarded by Wong. Strange gets his hands on the Eye of Agamotto and learns to manipulate time, since the Eye of Agamotto contains the Time Stone. Caecilius, who earlier stole a few pages from an ancient mystical text belonging to the Ancient One in order to make contact with Dormammu of the Dark Dimension, destroys the London Sanctum and goes to destroy the New York Sanctum, but Doctor Strange manages to stop him. But Caecilius returns again, and this time he destroys the New York Sanctum and kills the Ancient One. Caecilius goes to the Hong Kong Sanctum next and destroys it, opening a gateway to the Dark Dimension. But Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto to stop time, goes to Dormammu in the Dark Dimension, and traps him in a time loop, forcing Dormammu to surrender and leave Earth alone. Strange returns the Eye of Agamotto and resides over the New York Sanctum. 2 years after the Battle of Sokovia, Thor has been unsuccessfully searching for the Infinity Stones. When Thor returns to Asgard, he discovers that Loki has been acting as his father Odin, so he forces Loki to find Odin. When they do find him, Odin dies and their sister Hela is set free. Hela destroys Thor's hammer and sends him and Loki out into space, where they land on Sakaar. In Sakaar, Thor reunites with the Hulk. Remember when the Hulk went on autopilot in the Quinjet after the Battle of Sokovia? Yeah, he ends up here. And Thor meets Scraper 142, who turns out to be a Valkyrie. Thor then asks the Hulk, Loki, and 142 to help him defeat Hela and retake Asgard. They manage to escape Sakaar and return to Asgard to face Hela, but she's too strong and cannot be beaten by them, so they evacuate the people of Asgard and send Loki to the vault. But as Loki was in the vault, he lays eyes on the Tesseract, and we assume he most likely took it. They release the fire demon to destroy the planet with Hela on it.
The damage is not too bad. As long as the foundations are still strong, we can rebuild this place. It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe.
And that's everything we have so far before the release of Avengers Infinity War. We're not going to go into the events that could take place in Infinity War, we'll just go over the powers and the current places of the Infinity Stones and give you a brief background of the Mad Titan Thanos. So as we said, there are 6 Infinity Stones. The first one that shows up is the Space Stone in the Tesseract. It's been used to power weapons of mass destruction and open wormholes. It's supposedly kept in Asgard's vault, but as we just said, perhaps Loki has taken it. Next, we see the Mind Stone in Loki's scepter, and it has been used to control people's minds and give special abilities to people like Scarlet Witch and Vision. It now resides in Vision's forehead. Then we see the Ether, or Reality Stone, which Malekith wanted to use to revert the universe back to a darker age pre-Big Bang by turning matter into dark matter. As we know, the ether is taken from him by Thor, and the Asgardians decide to give it to the Collector in nowhere, but the Collector's museum gets blown up when Karina touched the Power Stone, so we don't really know where it is exactly, but it shouldn't have been destroyed by that blast. And speaking of the Power Stone basically enhances the user's strength and abilities, and when used with the other stones, it can boost all their powers as well. It is currently kept with the Nova Core. Then we have the Time Stone, which is pretty self-explanatory. It allows the user to manipulate time, as we've seen Doctor Strange use it to pause time, go back in time, or reverse time on the specific object, and create time loops. It currently resides in the pedestal, on a pedestal in Kamar Taj in the Eye of Agamotto. Lastly, we have the Soul Stone, and we don't really know anything about that one. I mean, there are comic book explanations that further explain what these stones do, including the Soul Stone, but we're not gonna get into that. We're just talking about the movies here. Alright, now for Thanos. The head of the Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, revealed that Thanos will have a different origin story than the comics. And what we know so far is that he was born on a planet called Titan, and this planet was destroyed by a catastrophe that Thanos felt he could prevent, but his peers did not agree with his methods. So after his home planet becomes uninhabited, this confirms his beliefs to be right. In Feige's words, he thinks he sees the universe going down the tubes. He thinks he sees life expanding outward unchecked. That will bring ruin, he believes, to the universe and to that life. So to bring balance to the universe, he plans on destroying half of it to save the other half. And in order to do that, he needs all the Infinity Stones, and that is what we'll get to see in Avengers Infinity War. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and follow our Facebook page for more movie recommendations and more awesome videos about movies.